Imagine becoming the ruler of the most powerful empire on earth at just 18 years old. A young princess, raised in near isolation, suddenly found herself wearing the British crown. During her reign, Britain transformed into the world's greatest industrial and colonial power, ruling nearly a quarter of the globe. Her name became so influential that an entire age of history bears her name, the Victorian Era. But behind the crown was a woman who experienced love, grief, political crisis, assassination attempts, and enormous responsibility. This is the remarkable story of Queen Victoria, the monarch who defined an era. Queen Victoria was born on May 24, 1819, at Kensington Palace in London. She was named Alexandrina Victoria after her godfather, Tsar Alexander I of Russia. At birth, almost no one expected Victoria to become queen. Several relatives were ahead of her in the line of succession, but over time, one after another died without leaving surviving legitimate heirs, making Victoria the next in line. When Victoria was only 8 months old, her father, Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, died. She grew up under the care of her mother, the Duchess of Kent. Her childhood was highly controlled under what became known as the Kensington system. She had very little privacy, rarely played with children her own age, and was expected to remain dependent on her mother and her advisors. Victoria later described the strict upbringing as lonely and restrictive. Yet these experiences helped shape her determination, resilience, and independence. Despite her sheltered life, Victoria received an excellent education. She studied history, languages, music, drawing, and constitutional government. She became fluent in English and German and developed a deep sense of duty. As she approached adulthood, it became increasingly clear that Britain's future would soon rest on her shoulders. On the morning of June 20, 1837, everything changed. King William IV had died. An 18-year-old princess was awakened with historic news. She was now Queen Victoria. No one could have imagined that her reign would last more than 6 decades and permanently change Britain and the world. At just 18 years old, Victoria became Queen of the United Kingdom. Although she was young, she quickly impressed ministers with her intelligence, confidence, and determination. Unlike many monarchs before her, Victoria wanted to make her own decisions. She held regular meetings with the Prime Minister and carefully studied government papers. Her first Prime Minister, Lord Melbourne, became an important mentor, helping the young Queen understand the responsibilities of constitutional monarchy. On June 28, 1838, Victoria was crowned at K1A Westminster Abbey in a magnificent ceremony watched by thousands of people. Across Britain, crowds celebrated the beginning of a new reign filled with hope. But being queen was far from easy. During her early years on the throne, Victoria faced intense political disagreements and several assassination attempts. Although she was never seriously injured, these attacks shocked the nation. Instead of hiding from public life, she continued to appear in public, earning admiration for her courage and calmness. As her confidence grew, another chapter of her life was about to begin, one that would bring both great happiness and lasting sorrow. The chapter began with her cousin, Prince Albert of Saxe, Coburg, and Gotha. Victoria and Albert had first met as teenagers, but it was during Albert's visit to Britain in 1839 that their relationship truly blossomed. Victoria was deeply impressed by his intelligence, kindness, and strong sense of duty. Because she was reigning monarch, royal tradition required Victoria, not Albert, to propose marriage. She later wrote in her diary that she was completely in love. The couple married on Feb February 10, 1840, at the Chapel Royal in St. James's Palace. Their marriage proved to be one of the strongest royal partnerships in British history. Prince Albert was far more than the Queen's husband. He became her closest advisor, trusted companion, and intellectual partner. Together, they encouraged advances in science, education, technology, and arts. They also built a large family, raising 9 children, many of whom married into royal families across Europe. Because of these connections, Queen Victoria later became known as the Grandmother of Europe. With Albert by her side, Victoria entered a period of stability and confidence. Meanwhile, Britain itself was changing at an extraordinary pace. Factories were rising across the country, railways connected distant cities, steamships crossed the oceans, and British Empire continued to expand across continents. The age that would forever bear Victoria's name, the Victorian Era, had truly begun. By the middle of Queen Victoria's reign, Britain had become the world's leading industrial nation. New factories produced goods on an unprecedented scale, railways connected cities across the country, and steamships made global trade faster than ever before. London grew into one of the largest and most influential cities in the world. Innovations such as telegraph transformed communication, while scientific discoveries and engineering achievements reshaped everyday life. Queen Victoria and Prince Albert believed that progress in science, education, and technology could improve society. Albert became a passionate exporter of innovation and played a key role in organizing the Great Exhibition of 1851. Held inside the spectacular Crystal Palace in London, the exhibition showcased thousands of inventions, machines, artworks, and products from around the world. Millions of visitors attended, making it one of the greatest international events of the 19th century. It demonstrated Britain's industrial strength and its growing influence across the globe. During this period, the British Empire expanded dramatically. British territories stretched across Asia, Africa, the Americas, and the Pacific. The empire became so vast that people famously said the sun never sets on the British Empire. However, this expansion also brought conflict and hardship. Many regions experienced colonial rule, resistance, and political change. Historians continue to study both the achievements and the lasting consequences of the British Empire during Victoria's reign. While Britain celebrated prosperity and global influence, tragedy struck the royal family. In 1861, Prince Albert fell seriously ill and died at the age of just 42. His death devastated Queen Victoria. She described losing Albert as losing the love of her life. For years afterward, she wore black clothing as a sign of mourning and largely withdrew from public ceremonies. Even Albert's rooms in the royal residences were carefully maintained as if he might return at any moment. Many people began criticizing the Queen for her absence from the public life. Newspapers questioned whether the monarchy still had a visible role in the nation. Yet, despite her overwhelming grief, Victoria never gave up her constitutional duties. She continued to read official papers, meet with ministers, and make important decisions behind the scenes. Slowly, over the following years, she returned to public life. The Queen, who had once been known as a young bride, now became a symbol of endurance, duty, and stability for millions of people across Britain and its empire. Little did anyone know that some of the greatest honors and greatest challenges of her reign still lay ahead. Although Queen Victoria never fully recovered from the loss of Prince Albert, she gradually returned to a more visible public role. As the years passed, she became a powerful symbol of continuity and national unity. In 1876, under the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli, Victoria received the additional title of Empress of India. The title reflected Britain's rule over the Indian subcontinent and highlighted the global reach of British Empire. At its height, the empire governed territories on multiple continents and influenced world politics, trade, and culture. By the late 19th century, Queen Victoria had become one of the most recognizable figures in the world. Her image appeared on coins, stamps, newspapers, and official buildings throughout the empire. In 1887, Britain celebrated her Golden Jubilee, marking 50 years on the throne. 10 years later, in 1897, millions of people celebrated her Diamond Jubilee, honoring an extraordinary 60 years of reign. The celebrations drew leaders, soldiers, and representatives from across the empire to London. Crowds filled the streets to witness one of the largest royal celebrations in history. For many, Queen Victoria represented stability during the time of rapid industrial, scientific, and political change. But time eventually caught up with Britain's longest reigning monarch of the 19th century. On January 22, 1901, Queen Victoria died at Osborne House on the Isle of Wight at the age of 81. She had ruled for 63 years and 216 days, making her the longest reigning British monarch at that time. Her funeral was attended by royalty from across Europe. Because so many royal families were related to her through her children and grandchildren, she became widely known as Grandmother of Europe. Victoria's death marked the end of the Victorian era, but her influence did not end with her life. Her reign witnessed the expansion of railways, spread of electricity, remarkable scientific discoveries, major social reforms, and Britain's emergence as the world's leading industrial and imperial power. It was also an era marked by colonial expansion, whose effects are still discussed and debated by historians today. More than a century later, Victoria remains one of the history's most influential monarchs. Her name continues to define an entire age of transformation, ambition, and change. From a sheltered young princess to one of the most famous queens in history, Victoria's journey is a story of resilience, responsibility, love, loss, and leadership. Her reign reshaped Britain and left a lasting mark on the world.